What's up, guys? And today we're going to explain how to watch all the Marvel movies in order of timeline. It's going to be epic. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that this video is filled with spoilers about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So if you haven't seen all the movies and you don't want them to be ruined, then turn back now. Now, before we talk about how to watch the MCU in order of timeline, we first need to define what we mean by watching them in the right order. There are actually 3 different ways to do it: release date, chronological order of events, and by connecting the storylines. The release date is pretty straightforward. This is the order in which they were released in theaters. Chronological order means watching the movies based on the time period in which the events of the film are set. And lastly, connecting the storylines is a little more complicated, but it refers to the order in which the plot lines progress. For example, you can't watch Thor before Iron Man, because in Iron Man 2, Tony Stark was already a superhero. While watching the movies in release date order is a nice way to experience the evolution of the franchise. We highly recommend watching them in chronological or storyline order. Release dates are not always an indicator of the time periods in which the stories take place, and if you try to watch the movies chronologically, you might be missing out on some important details. So let's talk about the different types. First, we have the release date timeline. As we mentioned, this is the order in which the movies were released in theaters. Starting with the very first Iron Man movie from 2008, we then have The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, The First Avenger, The Avengers, Iron Man 3, Thor, The Dark World, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, Age of Ultron, Captain America, Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man, Avengers, Infinity War, and The Wasp, Captain Marvel, Avengers, Endgame, and finally Spider-Man, Far From Home. The next timeline is the chronological one. As you probably guessed, the events in the MCU don't follow a strict chronological order, and since there are so many films and TV shows, it could be quite difficult to figure out when exactly everything takes place. However, we've done the research for you, and we found a list online that'll help us out. Let's start with the earliest movie, which is Captain America, The First Avenger. The story is set in World War II, of course, and it covers the years 1942 to 1945. Next comes Captain Marvel, which is set in 1995. Then we have the year 1998 with The Incredible Hulk is set in 2008, just like Iron Man. Iron Man 2 also takes place in 2010. Thor is set in the year 2011. After that comes Avengers, which covers a few months between 2012 and 2013. Then we have Iron Man 3, which takes place in 2013 as well. Thor, The Dark World is also set in 2013. Captain America, The Winter Soldier, takes place in 2014. Guardians of the Galaxy is set in 2014 as well. But since the events of that film take place shortly after the events of Avengers, it should come after Captain America, The Winter Soldier. After that comes Avengers, Age of Ultron, which takes place in 2015. Ant-Man is set in 2015 as well. Captain America, Civil War takes place in 2016. Then we have Doctor Strange, which takes place in 2016 as well. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is set in 2014, just like the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. But since its events take place before those of Avengers, Age of Ultron, it should come before it. After that, we have Spider-Man Homecoming, which takes place in 2017. Thor Ragnarok is set in 2017 as well. Now let's talk about the storyline timeline. The best way to watch the MCU in order of storyline is the following. We suggest you start off with Iron Man. This is where it all began. After that, watch the first Iron Man movie followed by Captain America, The First Avenger. Even though the latter was released after the first Iron Man movie, its story takes place decades before. Then we suggest you watch both Thor and The Incredible Hulk. All of these 4 movies take place before the events of the Avengers, so it would be best to watch them before the big team. Then comes the Avengers. After that, watch Iron Man 2. Even though its events take place 2 years before those of Avengers, Age of Ultron, it's best to watch it after the first Avengers film. Then comes Thor, The Dark World, followed by Captain America, The Winter Soldier, and Guardians of the Galaxy. These 3 movies all take place in 2014. So it doesn't really matter in which order you watch them. Then we suggest you watch Avengers, Age of Ultron. After that, we have Ant-Man, Captain America, Civil War, and then Even though Doctor Strange takes place in 2016, its storyline progresses alongside the events of Captain America: Civil War, so we suggest you watch it immediately after. Then comes Thor: Ragnarok and Black Panther. Both movies take place in 2017. After that, we have Avengers: Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then Avengers Endgame. And lastly, we have Spider-Man: Far From Home. After that, watch the first Iron Man movie, followed by Captain America: The First Avenger. Even though the latter was released after the first Iron Man movie, its story takes place decades before. Then we suggest you watch both Thor and The Incredible Hulk. All of these 4 movies take place before the events of the Avengers, so it would be best to watch them before the big team-up. Then comes the Avengers. After that, watch Iron Man 2, even though its events take place 2 years before those of Avengers: Age of Ultron. It's best to watch it after the first Avengers film. Then comes Thor: The Dark World, followed by Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy. These 3 movies all take place in 2014, so it doesn't really matter in which order you watch them. Then we suggest you watch Avengers: Age of Ultron. After that, we have Ant-Man, Captain America, Civil War, and then Spider-Man: Homecoming. Even though Doctor Strange takes place in 2016, its storyline progresses alongside the events of Captain America: Civil War, so we suggest you watch it immediately after. Then comes Thor: Ragnarok and Black Panther. Both movies take place in 2017. After that, we have Avengers: Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then Avengers: Endgame. And lastly, we have Spider-Man: Far From Home. There are also some secrets hidden within the MCU that you shouldn't miss out on. That's why we suggest you pay attention to every movie. For example, Nick Fury's pager going off at the end of Spider-Man: Far From Home is a secret that connects it to the events of Captain Marvel. Or the news report that Tony Stark was watching in Iron Man 2, and that showed the Chitauri army invading New York City, is a secret that foreshadows the events of the Avengers. One of our favorite secrets is the one in Iron Man 3, where Tony Stark talks about the Battle of New York and how he saved the world along with a team of superheroes, even though he didn't participate in the battle. This is a secret that foreshadows the events of Avengers Endgame. We also suggest you pay close attention to the post-credit scenes, because they contain important plot developments. For example, at the end of Iron Man, we see Nick Fury telling Tony Stark that he's not the only superhero around. This scene is important because it introduces the concept of the Avengers Initiative. At the end of Captain America: The First Avenger, we see Nick Fury in the present day picking up the cube from the ocean floor. This is an important scene because it serves as a bridge between the past and the present. In Thor, we see the other Asgardians arriving on Earth and helping the humans evacuate from the frost. This scene is important because it introduces the concept of Asgard becoming a refugee nation on Earth. There are many more post-credit scenes that are worth mentioning, but we suggest you watch all the movies to find out what they are. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like down below, and tell us in the comments which timeline you'd prefer watching the MCU in. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.